From your information last night, did you get a feeling that this was a lot better setup for the players like I did than initially reported? Or was this kind of on par for what you were expecting whenever the guidelines came out?
This has been something that's been rumored for a while. Teams, agents, players, the NBPA, the Players Union, obviously the league, they've all been working through this document for weeks and weeks and weeks. And everyone has been sitting on pins and needles, like, when is it coming out? When is it coming out? And I'd gotten a tip earlier yesterday that, look out for it tonight. And so I looked out for it. And I think players, from my knowledge, players are still sifting through a lot of the material. Players receive pretty much a 7 to 8 page summary of the entire packet. Meanwhile, teams got the full 113 pages. So, players aren't going to be going through the full 113 pages. But as far as the packet itself, it is daunting. There's going to be some players that sit out because they do not want part of all that Orlando will entail. But, when you read through it all, you read all the details. To me, it's the NBA just making sure that it can be as safe as possible, that there is no crack in whatever they end up, coming, with their return with. They don't want this to go downhill. And so they're going to do whatever it takes to shore that up. They're expecting you to follow all the rules. If you don't, you could be subject to suspension, reduction of salary. So obviously the anonymous tip hotline that we reported last night.
Hey,
so
this thing.
There are a lot of factors.
That anonymous hotline tip thing is amazing to me because we know that this was instituted by some states, right? They were like, hey, if you see somebody eating too close to the place or getting food, you should call the cops on them for not practicing social distancing. So whenever this came out last night that the NBA was doing the same exact thing, let me tell you my first thought as a member of the New Orleans Pelicans, okay? My first thought was, since I'm probably not going to get invited to the Dome down there, but I'm going to do everything I can for the Pelicans, I'm going to get a helicopter and fly them over those 2 nice hotels. And if any Western Conference team thinks that they're going to be doing any hanky-panky with each other outside in the lobby or outside in the pool and they're not going to be social distancing, I'm going to be calling that hotline as much as possible. I would assume that hotline will not get used by players. It'll become an understanding whenever you go down there, hey, this is our life. We're going to go through this together. But that's how serious the NBA wanted people to know that they were about abiding by all the guidelines so that their players are safe. I'd assume that's why that was added in there. Do you agree?
100%, and the league is trying to go above and beyond, and they agreed on this entire 113-page packet with the NBPA. So it's not like the Players Union should have been caught off guard, but with the hotline, they're clearly providing a service that if a player does, Michelle Roberts said on a call a couple weeks ago, I found fascinating. She's like, listen, we're not going to be tracking where you guys are going to be going. Michelle Roberts, obviously the executive director of the PA, she said, we're not going to be tracking you, but we'll know if you leave. And so some players took that as a kind of a whoa, is that an unintended shot that you're somehow you guys will still monitor us? And I guess this is a way to monitor them. Every player will have to, every player, coach, anyone in the campus will also have to wear, what they call a magic band, which is essentially Disney's wristband that will allow hotel room access and coronavirus checkpoints and security checkpoints, screening checkpoints, and so. There are some agents, some players that fear that could be a tracking device in some sense that the league, that Disney could use to track where players are. And obviously the NBA, the NBPA will never, they say that is not a thing. The NBPA made it clear to its players, we are not tracking you guys, at least from a software standpoint, but. There is that thought and that fear among players that we are being, that maybe our privacy is being too invasive.
That was a real conversation. They're like, hey, they're giving us this this Mickey Mouse band because that means we showed our ID and we got into the club, right? So they put a wristband on you, they put a stamp on you. You got your ID, you don't have coronavirus, you're allowed in these certain places. And then now, because the world that we're living in 2020 with the way technology is, some guys were like, oh, you just think that band's just get in there, huh? You don't think that they're going to be, because that's really what could happen nowadays. I mean, you have your phone is tracking you at all times. You got the Whoop thing that tracks your sleep that you wear on your. I mean, that is a real fear for some of these players, I'd assume. Let's dive into a little bit more of what the day-to-day is going to be like. Because the MLS, Tony Meola told us that the MLS players, They go to training, they go right back to their hotel room. 3 meals will be served to their hotel room. They'll watch film from their hotel room. They go to a game, they come right back to their hotel room. They were basically locked in their hotel rooms for however long this 54-game tournament will be for the MLS. That's what Tony Meola's understanding of the rules was. So whenever we thought the NBA was going to have those same types of rules, I thought that was going to be very difficult to get that done, because no matter how much money you have or whatever, if you're being told, especially coming off a quarantine and everything that's going on, that you have to be in your room for 35 to 40. You go to your room for 35 to 40 days. You can go to practice, you can go, but for 35 to 40 days, that's a tough commitment. I can't believe the MLS did that. I thank them for doing that. Can't wait to watch the tournament. But now that it's come out that the players are allowed to use pools, they're allowed to use the VIP concierge, they're allowed to use the golf courses, they're really allowed to do, I don't want to say a lot of things, but it can't play doubles ping pong. Don't even think about playing with a teammate. It's one-on-one, stand on the opposite side of the ping pong table. Unless you want to go in the pool together, then you can stand in there together. And if you want to play basketball against each other, you can sweat on each other there, but only singles ping pong. But it feels like this is a much better, at least living experience than I could have fathomed that they were going to potentially end up with for the NBA thing.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it is like summer camp. Like, these guys are going away like 10 years ago. For some of these guys, 15 years ago, maybe for some of these guys, like going back to AAU camp tournaments and, spending the weekend in Orlando. Except now, instead of the weekend for the NBA champion, this could end up being a 4-month expedition. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I think that this is the best circumstance the NBA could come up with. Adam Silver has said it time and time again. We're going to be choosing from a lot of bad options. We just got to make sure we choose the best of the bad options. And so, this is the best of that, and they wanted to make sure that the safety was first and foremost. They're blocking everyone off. You can't leave. You can't enter. And if a player does leave, like it was very, the charges are going to be very serious. 10 to 14 days quarantine, no pay for the games you miss. And players do not, guys do not want the invasive nasal swab. And if you leave the bubble, you're caught and you have to go through this protocol, you will get that invasive nasal swab perhaps daily.
Yeah, I wonder if they led off with that. By the way, you leave, going to have to get that nose checked as soon as you get back. Maybe twice for however many times you leave.